Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to be going over a brief overview of the physics curriculum here at Cambridge High School, as well as just talk a little bit about myself. So let's get into things. All right, so I am your student's physics teacher here at Cambridge High School. A little bit about myself. My name is James Seals. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in physics from Georgia State University. I completed my research on the evolution of active galactic nuclei. And so just a little bit about myself, I really enjoy physics. I particularly enjoy like megastructures in space, such as black holes, and understanding how they evolve and how they affect the overall evolution of our galaxy. So when I talk about physics, I will do a lot to kind of often connect it towards space issues, but I do my best to make sure things don't go over your students' heads. I've been teaching here at Cambridge for 4 years, and hopefully it will continue to be here for a little while. So about the class. So a brief overview of the period. Generally, I give a brief lecture that includes definitions and notes on the particular topic that I think is important for the day. We then follow up that lecture by going over a couple of practice problems. Generally, I ask your students to provide answers to parts of these practice problems in the chat. And generally, we get through the class when I feel like I am comfortable with the responses that I'm seeing in the chat. Once that is done, I usually send students off to do their own work. The goal here is not for students to just log off and go take a nap. They will pretty much always be given some type of assignment that they can work on their own. It's very important that students learn to sort of take responsibility for themselves when they're taking physics. There's really only so much that I can impart upon them. A lot of this is going to come down to them doing practice. So just getting into some of the ideas that students should consider if they want to be successful in this class. Successful students not only follow along with my class lecture, but should feel comfortable completing problems on their own before the test comes along. This is going to require practice. It's going to require trying to figure out what you don't know more than anything else, and making sure that you're coming in to get help. So as I talked about in the previous part about our class period, that asynchronous time when the students are sent off to work on their own, the objective there is for them to actually come back when they start to run into problems. One of the harder things about teaching physics is that students run into so many different problems, primarily based on their math abilities, just kind of where they are in their math curriculum. All of the math that we do in this course is very doable for all student levels. But some of them already have some practice with trig, some of them don't, and that's going to be a large part of what we work on in this class. So it's going to be very important that students try to come to me when they know that they're coming up with an issue. And that's why it's also important that they do all of their practice problems when they are given to them. I try to do my best to not be too strict or angry about what happens when, the internet goes out or you just didn't have time to get your assignment done. But I want them to understand that all of the assignments are there for their own practice. That is what I really think is important. Them doing the practice, figuring out what they don't know, and then coming to me to get some help, because I am always happy to walk through any problem that they want to do. I just also think it's important that they try it on their own before someone shows them how to do it. So some quick more info. If you'd like to contact me, the best way to do so is at sealsje@fultonschools.org. Generally, if you email me during school hours, I will try to email you back within the same day. If you email me outside of school hours, which is anytime before 7:50 or after 4 o'clock, I will probably get back to you within the next day or so. Teams only accepts user email addresses that end in fcstu.org. So these are the email addresses that the county distributed to all of the students. Therefore, any important emails that are posted through Teams or announcements that are posted through Teams will go to that official FCSSTU account. So you should please make sure that your student has access to that email address. And if you would like access to their Teams, you will need access to that account as well. So you can talk to them about that. Our schedule for physics, if your student is in first period, is from 8:20 a.m. to 9:05. Third period is 10:50 to 11:35, and fourth period is 11:45 to 12:30. What is most important is that your student is in class at the beginning of the period. Usually the lecture and practice problem time is only about 15 to 20 minutes. And the time after that, usually I just leave the call open, and it's sort of like an impromptu office hours for just that period. So as the students do problems, they then come back and ask me questions. Generally at the start of the year, even in person, that extra 10 minutes is not always used the most wisely. It generally takes things like not doing well on the first summative to really sort of realize that, oh, Mr. Seals is giving me time to practice, and I should actually take advantage of it, not just sit around and do nothing. I really like the idea about physics that if a student can get through all the practice problems and they feel comfortable with what they're doing, I think that's great. And if they want to move on to working on another assignment, that is completely fine. But I just want to make sure that they have all the resources needed to analyze their own abilities, and so that they can then come and ask me questions. Some of the key topics that we're going to cover are math, graphing, and vectors, as well as kinematics. Kinematics is going to be the study of motion. Dynamics is going to focus on the study of forces and how they affect the way things move. Energy transformation is primarily going to be focused on energy moving from potential to kinetic or elastic or other fun forms. Waves is going to focus on the way that we view things like sound and light. Electricity and magnetism is going to discuss many of the devices that are important in your students' lives. And then we do a brief discussion on nuclear and how it has essentially transformed our world and our energy usage. Again, everything that we do is going to go through Teams. There will occasionally be resources or links that I will give to the students through Teams. That will be outside, but that will always be available through the announcement posts that are in the daily live channel. Every time that I schedule a meeting, I attach all of the documents that are going to be necessary for that day. And I also post in our assignment tabs where they can go to turn it in. So finally, the last thing that we want to talk about is just what your student should need. Every day in class, the student should have paper, pencil, and a calculator. The goal here is so that whenever I want to start working practice problems with them, they can actually work them along with me. Remember, I would highly stress this to your student. It's fantastic if they can say, yes, I know what Mr. Seals did right there, but it is more important that they can do this stuff on their own. So after they follow along with my practice problems, they should get a blank sheet of paper out, do the problem that we just did again, and try to make sure that they can do it without using any notes. Obviously, I cannot be used as a resource during a test, so it's always good when the students feel comfortable watching me do the problem, but it is way more important that they make sure that they practice it on their own. Practice it in the same type of setting that they're going to be when they're taking their test, because sometimes students get stressed out and they just sort of forget the things that they've been working on. The more that they practice, the more they can kind of relieve some of that anxiety. So that is really all that we have to talk about for today when it comes to physics. If you'd like to contact me again, my email is sealsje@fultonschools.org. If your student needs any assistance with anything, please encourage them to make a time for office hours. They can just send me an email. Office hours are for 3:20 to 3:50. I pretty much just help anyone who comes in, but I do ask that you send me an email so that I know that I should be ready for you and maybe get some materials prepared that I think could help assist you the most. So again, if your student needs extra help, they should email me at sealsje@fultonschools.org, and I will make sure that they have an appointment set up during my office hours, or we can also work during the asynchronous time during any physics class of the day. Thank you for watching, and I hope that we have a wonderful year and have a wonderful day.